When you were eating grapes and lettuce, were you thin?
I was the thinnest I could be.
Were you still big though?
I was still big, but that was the skinniest I've ever been.
And I do think that we have to recognize that people are born much differently. How do you replace like a bad habit? It's like not the funnest thing, but maybe try to find healthier options.
I am in the fashion industry, so it really doesn't cost that much to make underwear.
Yeah, she doesn't know what she's talking about. No, he's dead on.
But I think it's important to understand for some skinny people, we're not living a great life by any means.
He probably eats like shit too.
It doesn't help that our cities aren't walkable either. Yeah, America is a country of non-walkable.
That is why That's a big deal right there.
What we got going on today? What is this?
Yo, middle ground. Jubilee they really do a good job of like making these things seem inflaming, because the title is Being Fat a Choice. And then in the thumbnail, it's skinny versus fat.
That's an interesting thing, is being fat a choice.
I'm sorry, there's a big difference between the people who are telling people go out and get fat versus a Lizzo who's saying accept me the way I am.
She's not just saying accept me the way I am. She's dressing extremely scantily clad. And then
she's going to be a headache.
I don't think that it's normal for a morbidly obese person to be wearing a G-string in the middle of public, then there's a problem.
Oh, she's going to be a headache.
Being fat or skinny is a choice.
So the people that walk up, they agree, and then the people that stand back disagree. This is a tough one because it's a choice, but at the same time, like me, I find like even though training is a habit of mine, I was lucky that my mom, who raised me, put me in a lot of sports. She got me in the gym at 13 years old. She fed me good food, right? So it was. And even though I make the choices now not to eat and overindulge, I had a better upbringing to put me in the right position to be in shape. Some people don't have parents that pay attention to nutrition, their surroundings. It's tough. But as an adult, you still make the choices, but sometimes you're not set up the best way.
And I do think that we have to recognize that people are born much differently. There used to be a kid that lived on the block that I lived on, and he was really, really heavy. I mean, at like 6, 7 years old, he was big. And it's like, I don't think that kid had a choice. Now that probably represents a really small percentage of our population though. And I agree with what you said. Like once you become an adult, yeah, you do have more choices. So, do you have a choice to act differently than other people that may have been abused when they were young? Do you have a choice to, is it a choice to perpetuate that and have that be your, the same family lineage that you're an alcoholic as well because your dad was an alcoholic and now you're, following in the same footsteps? I don't know. I can't really, for me, I can't really judge that because I never was in that position. I would imagine it would be hard. I would imagine that I would have every intent of being like, I'm not ending up like my old man. But you see it happen time and time again where people do end up being very similar even when they try to avoid it.
We'll get back to this, but you hit the nail on the head. Like contextually, if you're a kid, you do what your parents give you. It's hard to be the kid that's like, no, I'm not going to eat the cereal when it's like on every commercial and it's fed to you every fucking morning. Like at that point, you don't have a choice. But as an adult, it's a choice to change the direction of where you are currently, and you have the power to do that. It will be difficult. It will be difficult because you're changing a lot of habits, but at that point, it is your choice.
But I do think a majority of it is, and in most cases, for most people, being skinny or being fat is about willpower. It's about the environment you grow up in, sure, but who you choose to associate with.
For me, it's calories in, calories out. Go to the gym, you'll get buff. Don't go to the gym, you won't get buff. I understand that there's genetics that could cause you to want to eat more, but even with the genetics that cause you to want to eat more, the same solution is calories in, calories out.
Yeah, these topics are sensitive because a lot of times, not so much when someone just has like a couple extra pounds on them, 20 pounds, 30 pounds, maybe even 40 pounds. But once somebody starts to get very heavy, once somebody's obese, it's really rare for there not to be some sort of childhood trauma or something that registers as being like very negative to that person. Because 2 people can grow up or 3 people can grow up in the same household and 2 or 3 of the people out of the household could think that their childhood was pretty good, and one of them could think like that it sucked. And that you see that happen quite a bit. I wish I could reference the name of his podcast, but our buddy Russell Buddy has a podcast where he's talking with a lot of people that are obese. Russell is obese himself. He's a good friend.
Heavy conversations, I think.
And Russell, it might be the name of it. Russell has successfully lost about 100 pounds. We're going to have him on the show pretty soon. And I listened to him talk with this guy, Sean, on his podcast. And I just don't think it's a community that gets heard from very often. I do think that people are talking now, and you're hearing there's some people from fat acceptance and some of these other things that you're starting to hear. But that's not the stuff that you actually really need to hear. You need to hear in depth what it's like for somebody to be on that side.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only way we can learn about each other. It's the only way that we can really grow. I don't have any idea what it's like to be black. I have no idea what it's like to be a woman. I have no idea what it's like to be short. I got no idea, these different things. I don't have a perspective on it. So I have to ask questions. I have to communicate with people who've been in those situations and say, no, this is really what it's like. And then once you know what it's like, then you can start to maybe help somebody unravel some of the situations that they might be in. But until you start having like a lot of conversation about it, you don't really know anything. It's not as simple as like, oh,
pull yourself up on your bootstraps.
Just get everybody to exercise. Yeah, again, because there might be trauma there, and for me, growing up, my mother was obese. My brother had mental health issues, and seeing both of those things growing up was really interesting because my brother, it was hard for him to get help with his mental health because he was addicted to drugs. My mother, it was hard for her to get help with her obesity because she had mental health issues. So she would have had to, my mom, even though I encouraged her, my mom needed a psychiatrist or a psychologist of some sort. She needed a lot of help upstairs dealing with the stuff that she dealt with from the time she was a kid, because her dad was an alcoholic, her mom was an alcoholic. She was called fat when she was young, and that from the time she was like bigger, she wasn't necessarily fat. She was maybe heavy, I guess you'd say, at that point when she was young. And her dad would make fun of her. I think her brothers would make fun of her. God damn. And at that age, when you're young, I don't think it's really a choice. So things start sliding downhill quick. Then you're 18, 19, 20 years old or whatever. Maybe you're getting made fun of a little bit at school. And then maybe you're kind of like an adult and you're like, oh my God, like I do look a lot different than everybody else. I am like, I'm fat. Like I'm way overweight and I need to do something about it. My mom always tried, but my mom never got to the root cause problem. And the same thing with they're both dead because of it. My brother was never able to get to the root cause problem of his drug addiction because it was mental illness. And so they were both kind of, I think, searching for answers in the wrong spots.
Beef. Pat Broderick family, it is grilling season. Now, I really don't know much about grilling since I use an air fryer at home. My boy Andrew does, though. So, since it's grilling season, it's time to get your hands on some Piedmontese beef. We love those glizzies. We love that beef. Andrew, tell them more about it.
Yeah, guys. So, like you mentioned, they do have those glizzies.
Hey, yo!
For those that don't know, that's just a hot dog, but it's all beef hot dog, and it's amazing. My favorite thing to smoke is their prime rib, though. And, it's grilling season, so dust off those grills, dust off those smokers, and head over to cpbeef.com, and at checkout, enter promo code POWER to save 25% off your order. Links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
Get your glizzy gobbler on.
I felt like as a toddler, I always viewed myself as big. I grew up in a very poor home, so where my mom couldn't provide the meals that she could healthily. So when we would get free meals, even then, it would be canned food, and it would be very much food that's not as edible. It was food for us, yes, but then I felt like once it reached a point where I was old enough to try to make my own choices, I made all of the wrong choices. I wasn't eating.
When you were eating grapes and lettuce, were you thin?
I was the thinnest I could be.
Were you still big, though?
I was still big, but that was the skinniest I've ever been.
I do think that's a good point. She mentioned that she was eating a particular way and that she still was kind of big. I think it's obvious there's differences between us, but people just need to recognize that we're different. Some people are going to be bigger on the same amount of calories as somebody else. I think this is the way it is.
The tough thing though is too is the grapes and lettuce, or she said grapes and water, right? She probably wasn't eating many calories. She probably didn't have much energy. How long? Right. I'm not saying you shouldn't even be trying to eat like that, but how long can you eat like that?
Sustainable
before you binge, right? And then you have this mind of like, I tried the diet and it didn't work. And then you start eating, and then you're in this rough cycle. It's like, that's why
your energy out's not good.
Energy out's not, that's why you got it. Like the weight loss stuff needs to take time for people. A lot of people want it to be super fast, so they go on crash diets, but those crash diets aren't sustainable. So then they start eating more because they don't feel like they can diet. It's like, you got to find a middle ground. You really do.
1 or 2 pounds a week is about all you can do.
Do you think that right now you would not be capable of becoming a thin woman?
I possibly would be capable of becoming a thin woman, but since I was young, I was supposed to get blood tested probably when I was very, very young, and I never did. And they had mentioned that it could have been because of my weight and how that connects with my thyroid. I never made the connection, and I never had like that leaning parent to be like, go and get checked out, go and do this. Like, your weight is probably not your fault. It was always like, your weight is your fault, so that's your issue.
I want to mention, we work with a company called Merrick Health. If you're somebody who you're trying to get in better shape, you're trying to like work on your diet, etc., get your blood work done. Get your blood work done, because like some people actually do have thyroid issues and they don't know. You don't know if you're deficient in something. Merrick does a great job of getting your blood work. They have coordinators that will help you figure out what you're deficient in, so that either you can have nutritional protocols or supplements to help you deal with those deficiencies. My mom got Merrick Health done. My sister is overweight, and I got her blood work done so that we could start helping her move in the right direction. And I've gotten my blood work done, and I use specific supplements to help with my personal deficiencies. You want to know what's going on, especially if you're trying to start making a change. You want to know everything that's going on. You don't want to just start dieting, but you have no idea if you do have some type of issue you need to deal with.
Well, with thyroid and my own blood issues, I'm not quite sure, but I do see an endocrinologist and I go see a doctor. It's a choice to do the requisite steps. It's a choice to go grocery shopping instead of going to fast food and it's easy. It's a choice.
Pause real quick though. Pause real quick.
She's never had a difficult day in her life.
I feel so bad because I dislike her so much. I have
what
no
is
reason
that?
to yet. Like, why? Why do I just not like her? They did her bad in the preview.
Okay, that's right. Okay, you're right.
Yeah, she seems a little preachy.
Yo. let's see. Oh god.
Calories in.
Calories in.
Aisles and not go into the bread section and not go into the junk food section. These are all choices.
As a disabled woman, I can't do a lot of the things that people say, calories in, calories out, oh, you gotta go work out and exert it. A lot of the things that are typical, oh, this is how you lose weight, put me in the hospital. I have to navigate weight differently. I have to look at it differently. My weight is the way it is because of medication, because doctors put me in this position. And I had to learn, okay, am I going to be so hateful of my own body that I am going to backlash and put myself through extreme gym nights, through keeping myself from eating things that I should be able to eat. You should be able to have a balance. You should be able to go into the junk food aisle like other skinny people do and still not have to worry about gaining 20 pounds.
But I don't think skinny people go into this junk food aisle.
They
I think
certainly do.
They do.
I eat a lot of junk food.
Yeah.
I mean, my DoorDash would tell you otherwise.
There's
So
a thing
it
called
ensues.
sepsis.
I'm so happy that they're just dunk on her. But with what this woman said as far as the junk food stuff, we talked about this before. Like, I don't keep junk food in the house because I will overeat it. Like, if I had fucking Raisin Bran Crunch, if I had fucking Nature Valley granola bars, if I had fucking Ben & Jerry's in my, if I had these things, Oreos, oh fuck, I could go through a whole thing with 4 sleeves. I could do that in a day. The reason why I don't buy it, and the reason we talked about this on the podcast before, the reason why we don't keep these things in the house is because we know that we will overeat it. So what she was saying right there, she was like, we should be able to eat some of this junk food too. It's like, if you're responsible with it, are you responsible? I know I'm not, so I don't, because I could gain 20, 30 pounds very quickly. So I don't make that difficult for me by keeping it in my house or buying it.
How do you replace like a bad habit? You probably need to replace your habit of chewing tobacco with like Big League Chew or something, like some sort of bubble gum or something. Like, you probably need to like trade it out with something else. Your coffee habit with tea. It's like, I need something to take its place. So maybe you can just try to find, it's like not the funnest thing, but maybe you can try to find healthier options. The woman that said she's handicapped, she looks great. She looks like she's holding herself together. Like maybe she's got some extra body weight on her, but you know, I think like she looks healthy to me, you know, but she was saying that she has a disability. I'm not sure what it is.
She has a cane. So.
And she did mention that she was on like medications and stuff like that. So people have really way different situations, you know, than other people. But
that your body likes to be at specific weights. It likes to be in a specific way. So if you are fighting yourself to lose weight by not eating, over exercising, and you are damn near killing yourself to be at a specific weight, your body's unhappy.
I just want to mention real quick with what she's talking about. She's correct, but that's why the moderate approach is annoying, but it can work for people, because you got to think about it. For anyone who's very overweight, it took a while to get very overweight. It took a while to gain all that weight, and you cannot expect that you can lose all that weight fast. And what she's saying is like over exercising and not eating. That's what a lot of people do. They start over exercising, they do too much, and they don't take in enough energy, and they can't last, and then they say it doesn't work. Whereas
they're really hungry and agitated and everything else.
Right? Can you start just taking a few walks? Can you build in walks into your day? Can you eat a little bit less? Like these things take time to change, but if you can take that moderate approach, it'll take time to drop those pounds, but it's going to be something you can stick to for years, because it's going to take many people years. And you got to be okay with that. If you go for the fast route, most people don't last, and then they binge again, and then they say diets don't work.
A choice can be harder for people to make due to conditions in their life, but at the end of the day, it's still a choice. I could say that I had food addiction. I looked to food when I was stressed and this and that and this. And so it's harder for me to choose it than for someone who has like the perfect lifestyle, someone who has parents who are giving them this and that and this. But I definitely still acknowledge that it was my choice. At the end of the day, when I go there and I look and I see, should I order a second hamburger? I'm the one choosing whether or not I order that second hamburger. I'm the one making that choice.
He said harder for me, and I think that's awesome. Like that's such a great take home for anybody. Like, what is harder for you? Like, what are, you know, we all have situations every day where we're open to self-sabotage. And then like, what areas are you weak in? What areas are harder for you than it might be for somebody else? And that's nothing to be envious of anybody over. It's just like this particular part of my life, this particular little section of my life, of my day, it's a little harder for me, I believe, than maybe other people. And maybe even for that guy, maybe he doesn't even really realize. I think a lot of people don't know this. People are hungry all the fucking time. Oh, yeah. No matter whether you're skinny or whether you're fat or in between. I was really hungry when I was 330. I was well fed when I was 330.
You were well fed.
I'm hungry now. Like right now, literally, I'm fucking hungry.
I'm really, really hungry right now.
And it's just something that you end up kind of partnering with. You just put your arm around it and you're like, yeah, we're good. We're going to hang out for a little while. It's okay to be a little hungry here and there.
Yeah, it's not going to kill you to feel a little bit hungry sometimes. You don't always have to feed the beast. But one thing I want to also mention here real quick is we were talking about the scale earlier. When people are dropping weight, the focus is the scale. They're looking at that number all the time. They're paying attention to that number every day. They're weighing themselves every single morning. It's a good idea to look at other places where you could find wins. We've talked about taking measurements in certain areas. So measure your waist once a week, measure your hips once a week, take measurements of different areas, because ideally this area is going to be going down a little bit. And the scale is going to look like it's going to go down, it's going to go up, it's going to go down, it's going to stall, it's going to go up, it's going to stay there, it's going to go down. That happens. And if your mental state is all wrapped into the number on the scale, you will get fucked. But if you can take measurements, if you're doing some resistance training and you're like, oh, I'm lifting a little bit heavier, oh, this feels a little bit better, that's another win. If you're able to go on longer walks without getting as winded, that's a fucking win. If your clothes are fitting better than they used to, your fucking belt has you're a few notches in, that's a win. These are ways that you can get wins and feel like you're making progress. Whereas if you're only paying attention to the scale, that's a very easy way to just like get mentally fucked, because the scale is not perpetually going down.
I would rather be skinny than fat.
What do you guys? I agree. I personally agree. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
I'm also really tall. I'm 6'6", so I kind of wish I could just pick a single struggle, because finding the clothes and things like that when you're bigger both ways can make it really hard. So if I was skinnier, at least that's one less thing I have to worry about. But also, I've got 2 kids and a wife, and I'm taking care of them. And as you pointed out, I definitely think that I'm at less health risks if I'm a skinnier person, if I'm a healthier person in that capacity. And I would much rather be that so that I could be around for my kids longer.
Can the disagreeers please step forward?
I don't think skinny always equates to being healthy.
Exactly.
I am fairly skinny. I'm 6'5". I'm 140 pounds last time I checked, and I'm severely underweight. And I know about this on a day-to-day basis. That being said, I don't know where I'd want to lean at an appropriate weight level, but I think it's important to understand for some skinny people, we're not living a great life by any means.
He probably eats like shit too. You know, he probably eats exactly the same way as some obese people. Probably eats processed food, probably eats some junk.
Yeah. And
speculation, but probably.
Well, I mean, my experience as a kid, I was active. I played sports. I rode my bike pretty much every day, rode my bike to school every day, all that stuff. But I ate processed food like almost 100% of the time. I'd get home and I'd, microwave some like a burrito or something. I'd eat potato chips all the time. And when it came to eating dinner, I didn't want anything to do with it because I had just had all this amazing processed food. So when my mom would cook a home cooked meal, I'd be like, dude, it's flavorless compared to these Doritos.
Mm-hmm.
I was still very, very skinny growing up. Mm-hmm. I did have like a little like belly, but like arms, legs, everything. Like I was a skinny kid. Even as an adult, when I did start drinking and stopped moving, I still didn't get fat. I gained more weight, but I was still very skinny. Mm-hmm. So probably like this guy, I ate a lot of the like similar bad foods that you would think of, but I didn't gain weight, and it's interesting to think about that.
One thing that would be amazing for all of these people to do, skinny, fat, or otherwise, would be to lift. Lifting some weights would be really beneficial for everyone. The guy that's skinnier, he could feel a little bit better. He could feel a little stronger, feel a little bit better about himself. And I have no idea what his diet's like, but his diet would probably not necessarily correct itself, but his hunger signals would be there if he exercised. So in particular, some lifting, I think, would be really useful for all of these people. Even the guy who said he was 6'6",
the heavy one, or the
who's overweight.
Okay.
That guy, without any real dietary changes, just lifting weights, could perhaps over the course of a year or two put on 6 to 10 pounds of muscle mass, maybe 2-3 years, 6 to 10 pounds of muscle mass. That muscle mass, as long as he doesn't eat more, that muscle mass should help him to reduce his overall body weight over a period of time, or at the very least, help him to recomp. So maybe some lifting and a little bit of walking, lifting 3 times a week, walking 2-3 times a day could really, I know sometimes some of the stuff that we say sounds like a lot from somebody that hasn't done hardly any of it at all. But what I always think of is like, what if it's something that changes your life forever? Then is it worth it for you to go into a gym and say, who's the best personal trainer in this place?
Yeah.
I'm here to change my life. I need someone that's going to hype me up, that's going to help me, that's going to show me the way. Like, who do I select? And if they're expensive, tell them, say, hey, I picked you because you're the best, but you're a little expensive. And so I can only do consulting with you for a couple sessions, all I can afford. And hopefully you can teach me some stuff so I can go off on my own and do some of this on my own when you're not around.
There is such a gap between, one, the research, because the research has a huge fat-phobic bias in it, and there has been research that shows that they aren't, even especially during, let's say, COVID and the correlation between obesity. They rushed through those studies so fast because in society's mind, oh, of course a fat person is going to equal someone who's going to get sick faster, is going to get sick easier. It was an easy jump. So they didn't do all of the testing that they were supposed to do.
The thing that woman Cambria said, she mentioned going to a doctor's office and, they won't check certain things. They'll just say, hey, you need to lose weight. And, specifically women have kind of been underserved by medicine because a lot of research has been done on men and they don't treat women the same. Sometimes they'll just say, oh, do this. And it's they're now finally doing more studies on women and how like they respond to certain things for medications and supplements, etc. But in her case, the issue is like when you are severely overweight, your sleep is compromised. You don't breathe as well, so you're probably having sleep issues. And we know that having good sleep is one of the biggest metrics for being able to actually be healthy and make the right choices as far as food and having the energy to exercise. So that gets kind of fucked when you're overweight and obese. You're typically going to have higher blood pressure. It's typically going to be hard for you to move. Like the thing is like the biggest lever one can pull is going to be losing weight. You know, like, yeah, you definitely do need to get your blood work and get tested for all these things. But if you're obese, the biggest lever for your overall well-being and health is going to be losing weight. So when a doctor does that, you can't necessarily blame them because, hey, they have a lot of patients, but they see so many people where it's just like, you're 100 pounds overweight. Can we fix that? They probably should do more, right? But at the end of the day, that lever, if you pull it and you can make that change, many of the issues that you may be having will probably go away. And then they can really dive in on some specific things. But the weight loss is something that is just like, it's an obvious lever.
America has an obesity problem.
I think it's pretty clear. You look at the weight of the average American, you see how obesity has affected not just children. I mean, the fact that we have more younger and younger people who are looking heavier and heavier, and you see that, like, you know, the way that weight affects us as a society, and you compare that to how we were in the past. Now, not that we should always, you know, we shouldn't compare ourselves to the era of the Great Depression when people just couldn't find food, of course, but people are heavier now in an unhealthy way, and people are eating unhealthy. They are eating it through unhealthy access to food. They're eating diets high in seed oils. They're eating high corn syrup. They're doing all this kind of stuff that's not good for them that we didn't used to do, and it's bad. It's not a good thing. It's an epidemic. It needs to be quashed in some capacity.
I know we mentioned this earlier, but I really do want to reiterate that, like, Andrew's in great shape, Mark's in great shape, I'm in great shape, but we, like, literally also make the choices to combat the environment. You know, like, we don't buy certain things even though we'd like to. Like, we eat out sometimes, but we're careful about how often we eat out, how much of it we eat. Like, you know, because, you know, things, if you don't have the right habits, it's going to be difficult for you to be in good shape. You have to, like, make a concerted effort not to do the easy thing or the thing that feels good, or eat the food that you want to eat at this point in time and make a better decision. So it's not something like, it's something that everybody deals with, in shape or not. It's just, you got to make those choices.
And also, I want the guy with the blue shirt, the tall guy, would be fun to have on the podcast.
I want us to try to find his ass. I fucking love him. I think his name's Dylan. Dylan, if you're watching this, man, we want you on the podcast.
Yeah.
Get him into some lifting.
Yeah.
What I think is really sad about that is so many people in America just see the profit in it. I don't want to say I know that these people know the problem, but it's like, how can you not see the problem? They have to see it and just not care. They have to just be like, well, we're gaining profit. Do you see how much this McDonald's is making? Put another one across the street. Like, that's just like how it is.
That's the corporations, it's the medical industry. Having a fat country makes us money.
It doesn't help that our cities aren't walkable either. America is a country of non-walkable
That is why
That's a big deal right there. You go to other countries, the infrastructure is totally different. It's like walking is massively encouraged. Public transportation is also, like, a lot better in a lot of other places too. So it's like people aren't driving as much. They use their public transportation. They walk certain areas. It's a big deal. Like, that's not something I thought about, but that's a big fucking deal.
And they're encouraging it with media. So
And the mukbangs, I was literally going to bring that up, the mukbangs and, like, all those videos that just come up to trends. For people
not
to do
only
it as
the
well.
mukbangs, but also, like, Lizzo and other big, like, media.
I'm sorry. There's a big difference between the people who are telling people go out and get fat versus a Lizzo who's saying accept me the way I am.
She's not just saying accept me the way I am. She's dressing extremely scantily clad and then saying, if you don't think that it's normal for a morbidly obese person to be wearing a G-string in the middle of public, then you're the problem. And they're trying to normalize society to this obese culture, which is
like
extremely
G-string. He can't get it out of his head.
What is an obese culture?
A culture which, like, normalizes
I'm obese
obesity.
and I haven't even heard that.
Well, obesity is already normal, so
well, I don't think it should be normalized, and it wasn't normal.
But
just a couple
what's the
decades
difference
ago.
between a obese person, myself, walking around in a G-string or a bathing suit, as I do almost every day and a skinny person. Like, is it okay that the skinny person is doing that?
To say that when Lizzo does it is the same as a Victoria's Secret angel is just not the same.
Yeah, what's the difference?
What do you mean? Are you telling me they look?
As much as we get what she's trying to say, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
The Victoria's Secret model,
But she's digging herself a dig.
Yeah, she keeps digging and digging.
Yeah, think whatever you want, but don't say whatever you want.
Don't say it, girl. Goddamn.
Power Project family, your normal shoes are making you weak. This is why we partner with Vivo Barefoot Shoes, because they have a wide toe box, they're flat, and they're flexible. So with every single step you're taking, if you're taking a 10-minute walk outside, or when you're working out in the gym, your feet are able to do what they're supposed to do in this shoe. They have tons of options for hiking, running, training in the gym, chilling and relaxing, casual shoes for if you're out on a date. You need to check them out. And Andrew, how can they get it?
Yes, that's over at vivobarefoot.com/powerproject, and you guys will receive 15% off your order automatically. Again, vivobarefoot.com/powerproject. Links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
I do think there's a problem with obesity in America, but I think it's a first world country problem because it's spread across the globe. And also, I don't see it as a problem. I do feel like health-wise, people should try to be healthier, but there's no perfect body. There's no perfect person. There's no perfect size. And there's people who are underweight. There's a lot of them. And then there's a lot of people who are overweight. So I really don't see it as like a problem.
You pause it.
But just a
I think here's another interesting thing. Like, let's say you see the guy in the blue shirt, see him walking down the street. You know, you might judge a book by its cover. You might say, man, he's really overweight. He's really unhealthy. But how do we know that he's not on a path? You know, how do we know that he didn't already lose 20 pounds and he's been, you know, working on it? So I really liked what she said is that, you know, maybe, you know, worrying about the body type and the body size. Obviously, we would like to probably stay within a certain range size-wise, but it seems to be very difficult and challenging for a lot of people. And how about everybody just, when they're ready, they start to work on trying to be a little healthier. They start to learn. Again, it's like everyone's raised so differently. People have such different backgrounds. It would be great if people just knew this stuff from the time they were like 10. That would be really helpful. Or from even earlier. I mean, Andrew's been instilling all this in his son since he was born. I did the same thing with my kids. I think I basically did it right away with both kids. Like the whole time I've been teaching them about food. Conversations about food when they were really young were easy because a kid, when they're 6 years old, they're super literal, you know? A kid might say that someone's fat. And then you have to say, hey, you know, we
can't say that.
You know, you can't go in the grocery store and like say, hey, why are you fat? Like we can't do that to people. You can't, you know, that's not the way that we act. But what you can say to people is, you know, there's people in the family that are overweight. They're fat. They eat too much. They have extra energy on their body because they overconsume. They don't move enough. They do X, Y, and Z. And you're not trying to shame anybody or talk trash on anybody, but there are people probably in close proximity that make teaching your children much easier. Having role models, like negative role models around you and positive ones. You say, hey, you know, your uncle so-and-so, he runs all the time. You know, he does this. It makes him feel good. He does this to relieve stress. He also, you know, is a teacher or whatever, you know, and you explain like what each person does and how they kind of manage their life. And
your other uncle has diabetes, and this is why.
Right.
I'm saying this because I have an uncle who has diabetes.
100%. Those are close proximity. And then the kid hears that word like diabetes and they're scared, you know, or they're kind of concerned about it. Like you can get that when you eat even just one bowl of cereal. So don't touch the fucking cereal.
Scar them for life.
touch on what you were saying because I am in the fashion industry. I wanted to become a fashion designer. My dad was one. And they buy 10 rolls of fabric for one price. So it really doesn't cost that much to make underwear.
Sure, but don't you also have to worry about distribution? I mean, if the average person is, let's say, in between small, medium, large, and you're sending clothes out for those, you know you could send out 10,000 of this, 10,000 of that, 10,000 of that. You can't always send out 10,000 3XLs because you're not going to have that many people fitting in the 3XL.
Having sold apparel with many sizes, what do you know about? Like,
yeah, she doesn't know what she's talking about.
No, okay, no, she's so
yeah.
No.
He's dead on. Like, and also, not only selling apparel, but selling like knee sleeves and stuff. I've had so many guys come to me and say, "Hey, man, can you make like 5X knee sleeves, 6X knee sleeves, bigger singlet, bigger this, bigger that?" And we tried to accommodate wherever we could, which was kind of fun. It was kind of cool. And we just would ask the manufacturer, and they would make one, but it would be like a special order because of what this guy is saying. Like, I can't make an order for 10,000 6XL belts because I'm going to have them for the rest of my life pretty much. I'm not going to be able to sell them.
There's a census. So we have a database of what type of people are there. Now, we don't know who's going in there, but we know the type of people that live in that area and the type of the people that come and visit the area. So that person is doing their job accordingly, and usually large sizes are sold out.
How many times have you guys gone somewhere and you're like, this place just has like fucking mediums and shit? Like sometimes there's like nice, like a upscale clothes, and you're like, all this shit's tiny. Or even like an XL is like tiny, and you're like, I guess I'm out.
I go to Lululemon, like it's like the 2XLs, they don't have as money there. So like, I gotta like fucking, sometimes it's not there, but it's usually not many, right? And they don't even have 3Xs, so it's like, Lulu doesn't go over 2X for X.
Yeah, I mean, based on my very little experience with apparel, with our stuff, and then slingshots also, it's what sells out first? It's like the large and the XL. And then anything above 2X or 2X is like kind of there almost forever. And I get what she's trying to say, but like if you make the same amount of 3X, 4X, you're gonna sell like 1% comparison to the XLs. Like,
well, she's saying she knows who shops there, but the only reason why people shop there and purchase something is because there's something in their size. There's a lot of other people that go in there and go, fuck, they ain't got my size in here. I'm too wide, I'm too big, I'm too chubby.
Yeah.
Fat shaming is worse than skinny shaming.
What do you guys think? I think fat shaming hits harder. I think it is. You don't want to shame anyone, but fat shaming hits harder than skinny shaming, in my opinion. But
yeah, I mean, made fun of for being skinny and scrawny, and I got picked on because it's like, oh, what's that guy gonna do? And that did suck. But I would see other kids get fat shamed, and it's like, whoa, like it just seems awful.
There's way more negative stigma to being fat.
Yeah.
Now you can go all fucking Jean-Claude Van Damme on them. Right?
Yeah.
Rip out their heart.
I
put it in a little doggy bag for them.
Dude, I could pull guard.
Hey, watch what I could do if I get my gi and a mat, and you give me a couple minutes to stretch.
Yeah, I was like, wait, no, you don't move that way. Here, you got to roll this way if you want me to choke you.
Could you put this coat on real quick?
Yeah, for real, it's cold out here. Put on this this jacket.
Yeah, I would agree. The fat shaming is probably a little worse.
Yeah.
So I do agree that fat shaming is worse than skinny shaming. Just overall, entirely, the way that people like comment on people's weight compared to somebody skinny, they usually don't comment on somebody skinny. Yeah. They don't think there's something wrong with them. They don't, like, they'll maybe say like, oh, you're very thin. Do you want to eat a cheeseburger? But that's not as bad as telling somebody you eat 10. Stop.
God damn. She wasn't even meaning to make the joke. She's like, oh, you eat.
There's probably not a lot of big people out there that literally ate 10 cheeseburgers in a row. There's some probably, but there's probably not, 10 full-size cheeseburger?
No. See, I eat 5
Flying Dutchman.
Flying Dutchman.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
10 patties.
I forgot the Flying Dutchman go down kind of smooth. I forgot about that. I was thinking like a restaurant burger.
Yeah. But again, nobody that is health conscious or whatever you want to call the term is going to go order 5 Flying Dutchmen. Yeah, they're going to get a 4x4 or they're going to get 2 double doubles, whatever it may be. They're not going to roll through and get a shit ton of Flying Dutchmen the way I do.
She said something interesting there. She said they wouldn't recognize that something might be wrong with them. Like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Like, is that what we're identifying when we see someone who's heavy? that there's something wrong with them. I just think it could be the case. I could be totally guilty of that myself.
Think about kids, like you mentioned. Think about what kids see.
Yeah.
What immediately hits their head when they see someone bigger. They see it as a problem. They don't think about that usually with skinny people.
I guess you're identifying that there's maybe the word wrong just doesn't sound correct to me. Sounds kind of mean, but I understand what they're saying. Maybe the word would be different.
Yeah.
You just recognize there's like if someone's missing a leg or someone's like, you know, they were born a certain way. As much as you want to try to like, you know, you don't know what to do. I don't know what to do in that situation. I get super uncomfortable. I'm like, should I look? Should I not look? Should I say hello? What should I do? You know, but you are identifying that there's something different about that person. I guess that's the important thing.
But what if a kid grew up in a world where everybody had one missing leg?
Right.
They wouldn't even catch it.
Right.
So I think we're heading that way with being overweight.
Yeah. Where everyone's, like the person that is thin is now the odd man out.
Yes.
Something that I always get a lot of comments on is my masculinity as a man because of how skinny I am. It's always something that I've always kind of dealt with. My favorite comment is always, I look like a sickly, ill Victorian child. And
that's horrible.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
No. It doesn't bother me as much, but this idea that skinny people can't also get...
Y'all see Dracula now?
I know. I was thinking like I was hoping he was gonna say like vampire.
Oh, fuck! A sickly ill Victorian.
But he really is like. I mean, he's wearing it, right? I mean, he's very fair skin.
He's got the chains going, the neck tattoos, and then.
But at this point, if he gets sunlight, I mean. We've seen what happens to vampires in sunlight.
He sparkles.
It's not good.
Sparkle, exactly. Fuck.
But then also like the shirt that he's wearing does seem very vampire-ish too. Ooh. It's like a red. Anyways.
But I think that's a good point. You said you were called Skin and Bones when you got
my cousin.
But your cousin. So people using shame as a motivator to get your cousin to not be too skinny. Shame as a motivator is a powerful tool. So the reason I sit over there is fat shaming worse than skinny shaming. Well, you could argue that shaming somebody in order to motivate them towards a healthy lifestyle is actually a good thing.
I will mention, like, African households Africans are the most blunt people. All the African families I know, there's a kid that's out of shape, they shame the fuck out of the kid. And it's somewhat looked at differently because typically a lot of these things are done out of love. Are there healthier ways to do it? Yes, but bluntness is something that we are about. We don't like to beat around the bush when we're talking to people. We tell you when you have a problem. We tell you when you're unhealthy. That's what all my relatives do. That's what all my extended family does. All the Africans I know do that. That is a very effective form of communication. Even the dialects in Nigeria are all extremely straightforward in terms of the way the way things are spoken. So it's like some people, a little bit of shame can go a long way, but you got to be mindful who that person is. For me, a little bit of shame can go a very long way. I know that for a fact, and I don't mind being shamed for something because I'm like, that's true, right? Other people, it may not be the case. So I get what she's saying.
Yeah, they might not hear the message, right? No, they might not. And I think that's where shaming is kind of supposed to start, is like with concern, but it's really usually not concern. It's usually just like making fun of or trash talking, or at least that might be the way it's interpreted by the person that's getting shamed.
Yeah.
My 600-pound life, 1,000-pound sisters, family by the ton. All of them can do it. All of them have had this systemic issue of weight gain.
I have watched those like as a younger person, and it would make me feel disgusted with me when I was a kid, so it would make me worse, and it made my mental health worse. Because then I'm like, is that how like everybody automatically views me as just like somebody who's over?
I like watching stuff like this because it helps me to learn.
Yeah.
You know, I would never think that someone would feel ashamed in watching a show like that. I would think, I mean, it's just fascinating to get brought into any of these kind of shows that is a world that you're not familiar with, but just really interesting in hearing her say that she was like discouraged by that. That's interesting.
It does make sense though, because like with these shows, it's never like they're putting these people in a very good light, right? Like it's usually, you see the troubles, you see how hard their life is. It's just, they're never put forward as like, oh, I'm super intelligent or whatever. It's just like, I have a weight problem.
They really don't resolve it either, and it seems to consume their entire being, you know, that consumes their whole life.
Yeah, that shit's dark. I've seen like a few episodes of those, like not even full episodes, because it's just really sad to watch.
I don't think we should shame anyone to do anything.
No.
Got to shame people for something, because back to what they were talking about earlier about being in a G-string just randomly out in the street. We need some shame so dudes aren't just fucking whacking off in the middle of the street. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we need some shame.
Yeah.
Like, it does help control society a little bit, but I kind of get her. I get the gist of her point. I don't think she's maybe thinking it all the way through, but you kind of need. There does need some shame here and there, and say, "Hey, man, we don't behave that way."
There are limits. You know, you
don't just go and punch people out in the street. Like, that's not the way we act normally.
Yeah, I think she's meaning more just on the visual side of things.
Right. I agree.
Diet culture has positive effects.
Yes, it's interesting. I see only one guy coming forward. I wonder what they're going to say for no, but diet culture can be bad, but it can be good if good practices are being put forward. But I think the vast majority of diet culture is the fast, you know, fad diet, do this quick, lose weight now. That's a majority of things that people are clicking on because they all want it fast, and that's the most things that are being consumed. It's not the moderate approach that is the popular approach. So, you know, the things that we talk about are not the things that most people are talking about, right? So fuck, I don't know.
Yeah, I think they're causing it's a lot of confusion, right? Because it's like, oh, I heard this guy say
keto,
and then I heard this guy say
vegan,
and then I heard this guy say, we can do this all day long, right? Because it can be like, well, no, you can do keto, but it's got to be keto carnivore. It's like, well, what the like? Hold on. So Mark and I joked about this, about like how there should really only be like one diet book, and like we should get all the answers from that one book, and then that's it. But no, as he stated, it's like 80% of like the top selling books every single year are like diet books. So it's like we're causing tons of confusion.
Yeah, well, because there's areas to monetize. So they called it a vegan diet, and they ate processed foods. They called it a keto diet, and they ate processed foods. They called it a low-fat diet, and they ate processed foods. None of them worked. But all diets will work. But when you have the inference of processed foods, is where it can really mess things up quite a bit. I do think that the ideas surrounding a keto diet, like a keto diet, interestingly enough, is supposed to be like high fat, low calorie. People miss that part of it. That's what a ketogenic diet is. It's high fat, low calorie. And it actually works really in an amazing way. The problem is it's a little awkward to eat that much fat, and it's actually hard to eat that much fat and eat low calorie at the same time, because then you end up with like just not that much volume of food. If you've ever tried to figure out your volume of food with, you know, vegetables and fruit and lean sources of protein, you start to recognize, wow, I could really eat a crazy amount of like chicken and lean red meat and egg whites and things that don't have a lot of fat in them. And you can get like a large amount of it and fill yourself up every day. But when it comes to processed foods, you just eat them, you smoke right through them, and there's really not, might be pleasurable, which is cool, might be like satisfying, but overall it's not going to be all that satiating, and then also it's going to be missing nutrition. I do think that diet culture overall is really helping a lot. I think that we're seeing a lot of good work from our peeps in the fitness industry. We got Mike Israetel, we got Coach Greg, we got people that are not necessarily flat out in fitness, but you got Huberman, we have Joe Rogan, we have this show, we got there's many people out there with really, I can't forget Lane Norton, we got people out, Thomas DeLauer, man, there's people out there with a lot of great information, but we just do have to be careful what information we're consuming, and you have to be careful. It's okay to be sold something. It's okay to even purchase something, because some of these things, they could potentially help. But you're going to have to do your due diligence, and you have to do your research on whether it's going to be something that is going to actually help. Because there's a lot of weird things being sold to people, and unfortunately, the only thing that seems to work is losing weight in a slow, methodical fashion over a period of time, with maybe a little bit of lifting, some other type of activity, and just getting your diet in check in some particular way to help you manage your calories.
And that is not a sexy message. It's not a fast message. It's not
Sucks.
what most people pay attention to and hear. So it's like, fuck, maybe it's actually a negative. Yeah. So I actually, yeah. Because, well, actually the question was, it has some positive effects, right? So yeah, it has some positive effects, but a lot of negative effects.
I think that diet culture is a reason that a lot of people struggle with weight problems in the first place. I have even struggled with my own weight issues in the past, and I was like struggling kind of with depriving myself too much because I had a trainer. And then I started binge eating.
So what is the positive you think you've seen for people from diet culture, which I think, and I guess, what do you consider diet culture?
I guess like diet culture to me is the resources you need to get to where you want to be in your life, in your body. That's how I've always viewed diet
By
culture.
dieting, do you mean like journaling what you're eating?
Yeah, if you want to journal, if you want to, you know, talk to a therapist, if you want to work out, if you want to see a doctor, if you want to go on meds, like everyone's
But
always...
it's not being super, like when you diet, you're not being like, I'm completely cutting out carbs or I'm completely doing this, right? You're
lemon water only. Or
Are you you're like
restrictive
watching your
behaviors.
macros and your micros and you're calculating
Like,
that
I
and you're
guess
staying with
if you're asking if I know how many calories I have to eat, yeah, like I have to eat like 4,000 a day.
When most people talk about diet culture, they've done some
I'd
sort
say
of
6'5".
extremely
Yeah, true.
restrictive thing. And when you do something really restrictive, it changes your brain chemistry and the way that you think about food. And it makes you obsessive over food. And then, but it sounds like the way that you're doing it is extremely healthy because you're not depriving your body of something.
But isn't that just goes back to like, you guys are talking about the extremes of diet culture?
With one thing she mentioned there, the obsessing over food, some people do fall into that when they start tracking, when they start paying attention. But there is one thing you need when it comes to food, and that's awareness. At some point, because when I was tracking macros years ago, I did become a little bit obsessive, but I also gained a level of awareness. And then I stopped tracking and I understood how to eat. I understood how much I needed to eat to maintain a good weight. So at the end of the day, it's like, it's not like if you start to become a little bit obsessive, you can work your way out of that, but at least you now have an awareness of what's going in your mouth and how often it's going in your mouth. Because like people snack all the time. They don't realize how much they're snacking. They don't realize how many calories they're eating just from these snacks and just from these sugary drinks. You have no awareness because it's just what you do. You need to bring awareness to it, and then you might obsess over it a little bit. But that's better than just being on your autopilot that's continuing to help make you unhealthy.
I think somebody getting a little obsessive over tracking or something like that, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, as long as you're not compromised, as long as you don't have any like symptoms, as long as you're not developing some sort of like eating disorder. But if you're really being conscious and self-conscious of like, I don't want to gain body fat or I want to lose body fat, and you're heading in that direction, I don't really think it's that. If that's like a, I mean, if you're weighing stuff on a scale and you're picking stuff off of it, I don't really think that that's a huge problem. I think it's maybe a hobby, and maybe it's starting to get a hold of you in maybe an unhealthy way because maybe you can't relax about it. I think that could cause like anxiety, and that in it of itself would be sort of an unhealthy practice. But for the way I feel about like fitness and the way I feel about a lot of stuff that we do, is it feels fun and exciting to me.
Yeah.
So I don't mind eating a certain way or eating certain things or lowering my fat calories way down here and there to try to see what result I'll get. I don't mind doing that. Like to me, it's kind of fun. Somebody else might look at it and say, oh, well, this is maybe like a disordered way of eating or something like that. But to me, I find it to be fun. I feel like I have good energy every day.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem to like bleed into anything else. So just because you love it and just because you obsess over it doesn't necessarily mean, I think the woman, Lauren, she's talking about like intuitive eating. And I think in her head, because this is the way that she learned to eat, she's thinking that somebody can't cut out carbs. But there are a lot of people that can. There's people that can cut them out and they're fine with it, or they only eat them like periodically. They eat them here and there. For some people, cutting out like certain food groups or cutting out certain things can work really well. And, World Carnivore Month is coming up, and I think there's a lot of people that are going to try the carnivore diet for a month. And I think it's worth a try. And again, you just have to kind of zoom out a little bit and think of it as like, well, if I try this and it seems like it kind of works, then maybe I'll implement similar practices into my day-to-day. And maybe then from there you land on, hey, eating meat worked really good, but I didn't like only eating meat. What are some other things that I can kind of throw into the mix? And you know what? To be honest, I really fucking love pizza. Well, maybe you have a cheat day. Maybe you have a night where you eat pizza here and there.
So you've gotten your labs done, whether it's 6 months ago or a year ago, and you want to know where things are at, but you don't want to get a full panel again. That's why I've partnered with Merrick Health, owned by Derek, for more plates, more dates, and we have something called the Checkup Panel. This is an affordable panel with 55 different labs that will allow you to see all those different biomarkers, and you can get this channel every month or every 2 months, whatever frequency you like, but it'll give you all the specific labs that you want to know so that you can make sure that you're moving in the right direction for your specific hormones. Andrew, how can they get their hands on it?
Yes, that's over at marek.health.com/power project. That's MAREK health.com/power project. There you guys will see our checkup panel. Load that into your cart, and at checkout, enter promo code PowerProject10 to save 10% off of that panel. Again, marek.health.com/power project. Links in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
Yeah, I tried keto for a while. And that's the thing about what I realized is like that fad diet kind of stuff. And yeah, did I lose weight? I absolutely lost weight. Sure. I didn't keep it off. And the reason I didn't keep it off is because diet culture is about turning the word diet from your overall eating into an activity that takes place over a period of time. A diet should not be something you do from January until May of next year. Diet is what you continually eat, is what you continually put into yourself. Yeah.
Lifestyle.
Yeah. So my issue with diet culture is this idea of like, oh, I've got this perfect solution for you, man. All you got to do is this, and this, and that. And it's like, no. Like the reality is like, yeah, there are good, correct, and objective ways, I think, for a lot of people to eat. And yes, everybody has to have some variations here and there. There's no one bag fix all, and diet culture is so much about trying to say like, all you got to do is just eat cheese puffs every day for the rest of your life. And
it's easy.
Yeah. And so that's why I think diet culture doesn't help.
The thing he said about the lifestyle thing, it's something that, over the years, if you're trying to get healthier, the thing that you do when you start that first step you take will not be a diet that you're on for the rest of your life. It won't be the way that you eat for the rest of your life, because you're taking a step in a potentially positive direction. That step might look like you tried the carnivore diet and you found out, I don't like to only eat meat. So then you add some fruits in and you add some carbs in. Okay, now you're eating more protein and some carbohydrates. And then at some point you're like, you know what? Maybe I want to try this keto thing. So you try that, but you realize, okay, that's not for you. And then you switch to something else, but you're constantly working on getting to a healthier diet or food way of eating for you.
Yeah, you're switching from one plan to another, but not switching from a plan to no plan.
Exactly. Right? And that's the thing, because the way we eat right now is very different from years ago. But the thing is we've always maintained our shape. We've never ballooned up or ballooned like that. That doesn't happen with us because we're just constantly just trying to be healthy. And when you take a step doing that, you're not going to just fall off the wagon and start going into crazy unhealthy habits, right? It's not just a 12-week challenge. It's not a year challenge. It's a lifestyle change.
The skinnier guy, he mentioned maybe when you go on a diet, maybe the goal right away shouldn't be always to lose weight. Yeah. And I think people would be like, well, why am I on a diet? What am I going through this trouble for? But sometimes it takes a little getting used to that style of eating. And we've talked about this a million times before, but if you get your lifestyle habits down, you get the habit down of sleeping, you have a little bit more activity, you start to pull out, like forget about all these other things that you have to do. You just start to pull out some calories from drinks that you have. You start to eat a little more protein. You don't need to be super precise with your diet. Over a period of time, you're going to start to get on track. You're going to start to lose a little bit of weight. But in the beginning, you got to be patient. And I don't think the main goal off the bat every time should be to lose weight, especially because those hunger signals are going to be there. Oh yeah. You're going to be pretty hungry, and it's not even going to be real hunger. It's going to be more like a fake hunger, but you're not going to be hungry for the foods that are on the plan. That's kind of part of the trick. But if you have access to meat, fruit, vegetables, and some dairy, those are all good enough options to get you by every single day with maybe a legendary tasty pastry here or there, or a protein shake here and there to add some sweetness to your diet. But you should be able to maintain that for a long time because there's a lot of good fucking food in there.
Dude, your palate changes. That's one thing that I think, like, if you've been eating a lot of processed food, you've been eating highly palatable food from fast food and fucking Doritos and shit, and then you start trying to eat whole foods, you're not gonna like be seeking out that fucking potato and those chicken. You're not gonna be seeking that out initially because you're used to Doritos all the time and Oreos and these foods that were made for you to eat a fuck ton of them. They're so good.
A potato has so much taste if you're on a bodybuilding diet. Right?
Yeah.
And you put some salt on it, you're like, oh my God, it's so good.
But if you give your time, like if you give it time for your palate to change, then you'll actually start to be like, damn, those fucking, that Greek yogurt's fucking good. Greek yogurt and honey, good. Like these things become good, but you got to give yourself time away from these foods that are meant for you to be addicted to them. They are made so you can overeat them. That's why you just got to give it time, dog.
I hear diet and I think of something that's positive, and it's been positive to me, and you know, it's something I'm always trying to achieve. I guess like if we were to redo the same exact question, I may hesitate and not walk across the line. I guess I'll never know, but hearing these perspectives were really good because I probably didn't know as much about the extremes.
Yeah, this whole thing was great. But you know, on that last question, I think an interesting thing is like, my knee-jerk reaction was like, oh yeah, diet culture is, you know, positive. But then you do think about what most people see as far as diet culture, what's popular. And that shit's just making money. Like that shit's 12-week challenges, that shit's detox teas, it's fucking, you know, processed foods for specific type of diets. It's not the lifestyle stuff. You know what I mean?
It's hard to it's hard to have a message and have it be like, I guess, understood in the way that you're trying to share it.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times the message gets changed. You know, I might say something on the show. I might talk about how I don't eat a lot of carbs. And then somebody might be like, Mark doesn't eat any carbs. I'm not going to eat any carbs.
Yeah.
But then they don't hear me talk about, like, maybe they missed other episodes where I talk about eating fruit, or even when I've been on ketogenic diets, I would have a day where I would eat more carbohydrates and stuff to give my body some glycogen and so forth. So sometimes people take some of the ideas, like they might take from Huberman or Ben Patrick, some of these people, and they might take these ideas and concepts and really overdo them all the way to the point where we've seen some people have sent us like videos where people gotten hurt. I think I saw somebody, you know, go into shock by doing cold therapy.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of like stuff that you take this recommendation that was well-meaning, and maybe you took it too far for where you're at this time. Somebody talked about, you know, hill sprints or something, and you're like, oh, fucking cool, hill sprints, and how they can be good for like bigger people. You go out there and you do 10 sets of hill sprints.
By hamstring.
And you haven't sprinted in a long time. You could get injured. You could just have a lot of shortness of breath, and you could end up in a real compromised position really quickly. So with the diet stuff, I think there is a lot of great information flowing around there, but there is a lot of money to be made as well. So you have to kind of be cautious on the information that you get. But for the most part, I think there's a lot of well-meaning people out there sharing a lot of great information.
Yeah, or like fasting's one of those things. We utilize fasting. Like today, I mean, I haven't eaten yet. I went to jiu-jitsu, but the thing is, that's not an everyday thing. I just wasn't extremely hungry this morning. I had work I had to do. I'm going to eat a lot tonight. When we talked about fasting, it's not something we do every single day. There are days that we'll eat through the day, but we'll eat our meals through the day. But it's like when somebody hears fasting, they automatically think, I have to fast for 16 to 20 hours every single day. It doesn't matter how I feel, fucking go through it. Context, like you can utilize all of these methods in a healthy way to get towards your end goal. It just takes learning. It takes practice. It takes you actually putting these things into practice and adjusting as you learn. There's a lot of learning. That's one thing, man. Learning how to eat is a lot of learning, especially if you didn't have people to teach that to you. And you got to put that work in.
There's a lot of people who got no idea where to even start.
Yeah.
A lot of people aren't like cooking their own meals. They're not really sure how to shop. All right. I hope you guys dug that. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.
Hi there. I know you guys like this video, so check this one out.